Alright, so this is the space we made on the lathe. This side's a 1/4-20, that side's an M6. So I popped a little cover off here on the dash, and if you drop this down inside there, to get it lined up, it's kind of hard to see, but there's a threaded bolt in there, and we're going to spin this little spacer right onto that bolt. Okay, so there we have the driver's side stud mounted and the passenger side stud mounted. So we're going to leave those little covers off. Now these studs are made from 3/4 inch aluminum, and these are 4 inches long. Okay, so we have our little T-nut here. We have our aluminum extrusion, and we have our little spacer here. So we're going to slide that in. I had to take the end cap off this extrusion temporarily, but it's really good to leave that on there as much as you can, because that stuff tends to try to scratch your interior real bad, because these corners are pretty harsh. We're going to put it in like that, attach it to here. All right, so sorry about the reflection, but here's a view from the outside of the windshield. So we're going to try to show you a little bit better view on this one. All right, so now that we have our brackets fairly tight, we can measure from the brackets to the end of our bar here, so we can get this thing centered. So now we are at 6 7/8. Let's see how we're looking on the other side. We're pretty much bang on 6 7/8, so we're going to call that good. So that means we can pull it out and mount our brackets at 6 7/8 from each side. Okay, so we're measuring in 6 7/8 from the end. And I've got the bracket lined up with a little line on our piece of material there. So let's go ahead and tighten this up. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so after a whole bunch of messing with it, I think I've got it lined up. There are definitely better ways to do this. You could use a hex nut, for example, so you could just use a wrench. Or you cut down an Allen wrench, or you could put the mounting tabs on the top. There's lots of different ways to do it, but I wanted to hide the mounting brackets, and I didn't have another Allen wrench this size that I could find to cut, so I've just been fiddling with it, but I think I've got it lined up now. All right, got it all mounted in, tightened down. As you can see, it's nice and strong. Alrighty, so I got the dash bar back out of the Jeep. There's the main bar and my uprights and everything. I want to take them out and try to go ahead and finish them, because a lot of these parts were aluminum. So this is one of my old spacers here. And what I did is I went ahead and got a Harbor Freight powder coater and powder coated the uprights. So you won't see this silver part. That's going to be underneath the little brackets. But you can see it actually looks pretty good. It's got a little bit of eggshell to it, but you won't ever see much of it. Here's the little brackets. I think they turned out pretty good. So I have this guy out again, so I'm going to go ahead and pre-assemble it. All right, so I got a little bit better tripod now, so hopefully you guys can see that mounting stud down the dash a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and screw down a little standoff right onto that stud. Get it lined up here. There we go. So that just threads down in just like that. Get it nice and tight. All All right, I'm gonna put the driver's side one in, and then we'll go ahead and put the bar back in. All right, so you can see it's a tiny bit off, but that's okay. There's some flex in those studs, so we'll be able to get it lined up. After all that time fighting with that Allen wrench, I finally decided just to go get this hex socket out of my toolbox and use that so I don't have to keep fighting with the Allen wrench on the windshield. So let's get this guy lined up and all back together. Sorry, I'm trying to keep my hands out of shot, but it's a little hard. All right, started there. Tighten this down. So it's under a little bit of tension, but not much. It's not a big deal. Okay, and now I can just pop a ratchet onto that little hex socket and tighten it down. You know, this is all aluminum and stuff, so we don't want to go too crazy, but we can get a little torque on it. Just snug it, about like that. All right, and that's in. So I'm gonna go tighten up the driver's side, and then we'll mount some accessories. All right, so we're gonna put the cell phone mount back on. So again, I'm just using some of these inexpensive little T-nuts. The only downside to these ones is you have to slide them in from the end, but it's not too big of a deal. I am going to go ahead and mount this on the top instead of the front like I had it last time, because I want to shorten that arm just a little bit. So let's get those finger tight. And again, we'll use our hex socket with our ratchet. And we'll just use our hex socket with the ratchet here. Don't want to get it too tight, just snug. So all this stuff's aluminum, and with this ratchet you have a lot of torque, so you don't want to be tearing up the aluminum. Alright, now we can take our cell phone arm and just stick it right back on here like any other RAM mount. Get it nice and tight. This arm is pretty long and weighs a lot, so it's got a little bit of flex to it, but not too bad. You can see that flex is actually in the adjustment of the arm. Let's tighten it down. So the bar's got a little bit of flex in it, but I'm pushing pretty hard on the end of that 6-inch arm. So there we go. I'm going to make another mount for my radio, or my ham radio control head, because I had it sticky taped to the dash and it's fallen off because sticky tape is terrible. So I'm going to try to mount it over on the driver's side by the A-pillar. Alright, so this is the control head for my Yazoo FTM300 that I have installed in the Jeep. And you can see on the back it has a little threaded insert. And we're going to use that to mount it to our bar up here. Just about like that. This is just some 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch aluminum angle. Alright, so we've got our T-nut in there. We've got our little mounting bracket. It turns out our cap screws is a little too long, so I've got a washer. I'm going to eventually get a black washer to go in there, but for now, I'm just going to test fit it. Make sure that's enough. Yep, that tightens down fine without bottoming out. So this is angled down just a little bit more than I want. So what I'm going to do is stick this bracket in the vise and then just bend it up a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and clean it up a little bit more, and then I'm going to powder coat it, and then we'll get it mounted in here. Alrighty, after 15 minutes at, I think it's 400 degrees, it's time to take it out. Looks pretty good for a $75 powder coater and 5 minutes of work. Alright, once it's cooled down, we'll put it back in the Jeep. Alrighty, so there's the bracket all powder coated and cooled off. Then I've got the Yazoo control unit mounted to it. So we're going to go ahead and attach it to the bar. So while I was waiting for that to bake and cool, I went ahead and ran my control cable up to the dash. Let's see which way this goes in here. So this is connected to the actual body of the radio, which is mounted under my seat. So we'll plug that in right there. Grab our cap screw there. I think we actually want that wire to go under the bar. So then you still need to get a black nut or a washer for that, but for right now that silver one will be fine. You won't really see it. Get that started. Get it lined up pretty well. Now put the ratchet on. We'll just do a little bit more. I don't want to torque it too hard, but a little bit more than I can do with my fingers. And there we go. All right, guys. Here it is all mounted up. Just got my cell phone case in there right now for demonstration because I'm actually shooting on my cell phone. But you can see how it fits in there. Not in the way of the steering wheel or vehicle controls or radio controls or anything. Got the radio there. Real easy to reach everything. So anyway, let me know if you guys have any comments or questions. Kind of just a fun little project. Thank you guys for watching.